Christopher. How you doing tonight?
Oh, fantastic. And I assume that you're feeling kind of frisky after being on the road for a week.
I am 2,200 miles later, and I literally rolled up in Hollywood on my street with 2200. It was pretty amazing.
Wow, that's totally cool. And you're rebounding nicely. You know, that jet lag road trip kind of stuff normally knocks a person out, but you're looking good tonight. So we're ready to give our peeps some special info, huh?
Yeah, well, it's Halloween night as you and I are doing this. No, we don't have costumes like we said, but you can start to feel the magic in the air as we have a very powerful solar eclipse building this weekend, and this has just been a couple weeks of some really deep adjustments in our lives, and for me it was really deep, and I'm definitely prepared for this eclipse.
That's nice. Well, really, this has been a build-up for 6 months. I think more so than most eclipses, because we have got so much activity going on in Scorpio. It's like, oh my God. And at the very top of the order of amazing things happening in Scorpio, we have the nodes still moving along, Taurus Scorpio related, and they are going to be getting involved in this magical mystery dance that we're going to be experiencing on the 3rd of November.
It is a magical mystery dance, especially because Scorpio is such a mystical sign. I don't think it gets enough credit for being a mystical sign because there's so much hidden underneath the surface. There's so much emotion involved. There's so much occult knowledge. It's a very powerful sign, and there's a lot of water energy. I mean, we're so lucky to have Jupiter in Cancer still direct for this solar eclipse. We've got Neptune, which is at this really interesting degree where it's going to station at. So we're at this really big water energy that comes in this weekend. And this buildup that you describe over the last 6 months is a great way to put it, especially because last year there was a solar eclipse here in Scorpio. And this has been the whole, Saturn in Scorpio lesson, and here we're going to have a huge solar eclipse next to Saturn. It's been a long time since we had anything like this.
Yeah, and I think this one, the nature of the eclipse, from my observation, is that it does almost exactly the opposite of what you would imagine. The eclipse basically means that the sun becomes occluded by another planet, specifically the moon. So you would imagine that things would be obscurificated as a result of that transition or that passage. But in reality, what it often does is it reveals things. It pulls the veil out. And so I think that's really what's going to be happening, especially with the intensity of Mercury retrograde in the spin, the sun, the moon conjunct in Scorpio. That node over in Taurus is going to be in opposition and somewhat in resistance to the energy. This is all being channeled up into Pluto and Capricorn in a nice tight sextile there. And then that sparks that angle of squaring Uranus over in Aries. So wow, what a bunch of fireworks we've got going on.
It is pretty remarkable, just because Saturn being close to all this energy and Mercury retrograde. I mean, we come into Friday with the Sun and Mercury conjunct in a retrograde energy, so there's a clarity that is already developing before we step into the eclipse, which I think is so powerful. I think we're becoming very clear, and it's kind of nice to see Mercury come off of Saturn and come towards the Sun. Mercury does not like to be next to Saturn, so this can actually lighten up the attitude, lighten up the load, but it is the Sun getting close to this eclipse, and this one is going to almost conjunct Saturn. And I'd have to do my math, but it's been a long time since it's been since 2001 since the North Node and Saturn conjuncted, which means that it's been, and I don't have all the facts on this, but it's been a decade since we've had a solar eclipse, at least a decade since a solar eclipse on Saturn, which is a very positive light, I think, because this is really lighting up where the Saturn and Scorpio work is, and this is deep inside of ourselves. This is dealing with really internal energy, really hidden agendas. And like you said, there's all this fireworks going on outside, which makes for, I think, one of the weirdest feelings anybody can go through, some of the craziest karma anybody can go through. I went through some pretty deep karma in the last 2 weeks.
Well, and I think we're going to see a lot of that kind of rebound effect. So it's not just what is leading into this process, but after the eclipse for the next 2 weeks, I think we're going to be having some very significant, like, aftershocks. You know, it's like having that big earthquake there in Los Angeles, and then for the next 3 or 4 days, everybody's hitting the deck because you have the aftershocks coming along afterwards. The thing I find very fascinating as far as a potential is the chrysalis effect that I'm sensing around this interaction of, once again, Uranus squaring Pluto and sextiling this buildup in Scorpio that is also getting some juice from Mars sextiling all of this activity also. And I think that it's perhaps necessary for us to not have an expectation that is too rigid as to how this is going to manifest in our lives. It's like, you know, when the caterpillar spins the cocoon, it goes into a completely fluid state. It becomes something entirely different than the worm, and yet it still is not the butterfly. And I really see this eclipse as having that effect. It's like somehow, somewhere deep in everybody, you're going to access a place that is undefined. This is the great mystery. This is that mysterious place that we cannot put a definition on. But this is a place where the butterfly eventually emerges. So that's what I see as we advance from this full moon to the next new moon, which is going to be happening where? In wonderful Sagittarius. So we're going to be, you know, spreading our wings and flying into a great period of self-exploration and self-redefining.
Yeah, you know, this is such a weird eclipse because as we're speaking and as Friday, Saturday comes, we're pretty much in a powerful yod here. We've got Mars 10 degrees, we got the Sun, Mercury at 9 going to 10 over the weekend, so that forms that sextile. We got Uranus at 9 degrees, which is making these very weird angles to these spots, which creates the yod. And I think this solar eclipse is having us look deep inside of ourselves, go very inward in order for us to really push this new outer self correctly based off our inner, and to re-identify our life correctly, re-identify with different, you know, courage. I think we've all been tested to kind of have to keep pushing forward. This is not a very an easy inward alignment, I would say. I'd say that it takes a lot of work with Saturn in the mix. It takes a lot of our mind with Mercury retrograde. It takes a lot of courage with this Uranus, you know, energy really electrifying this yod. It's very rare to see the finger point to a yod with Uranus. I think there's this really powerful, unpredictable, wild, you know, kind of epiphany-like energy that steps us into our deepest, darkest areas, which are unveiling this light. I think there's this light coming through this eclipse. Even though, you know, it's always associated with so much dark because it's in Scorpio, it is this extreme light that I see that's really stepping out of all this. And I think you bring up great points, especially of where this is all leading us in the next month, over the next, you know, cycle of the full moon and the next new moon is, you know, in order for us to open the doors in Sagittarius, in order for us to really step more into this fire and this passion, there is some deep inner work that we have to align with first, some deep emotional work, some unveiling we have to do. There's some courage we've got to gather. There's some exciting changes that I think the universe is acting on in our reality in order for us to step correctly into this next month.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, you know, as you had mentioned, as you pointed out there, the finger of God in this particular yod, in other words, where the yod is playing out, is in Uranus and Aries. And to me, that would suggest, because of the sudden disruptive and eruptive nature of Uranus, that would suggest that this is a catalyst for a completely clean break from the past. So if you've really been working on trying to redefine your life and create a new vision of who you are and where you want to go with things and what your life will consist of, I think this is a very, very powerful pivotal point. And if you are willing to take up the cause, if you are willing to jump on your horse and ride into the dawn with this energy, it is going to be the source of some very amazing transformative stories. And of course, you know, with our people who are watching this, definitely do leave us notes about how this has personally impacted you in your life and your situation.
I think you're exactly right. I think what you just described describes even the Pluto-Uranus square, which is exact for this eclipse. I mean, here we are November 1st, it goes exact. And this is powerful. This is the battle of the gods up in the sky. And in many ways, we're all having to really go through some heavy energy of transformation, some heavy energy of breaking through. I think you're right, as this is the pivotal point and how it can clear parts of our past. You know, we are highlighting where Saturn has already traveled. So this is not happening in front of Saturn like it did last year. Last year it happened in front of Saturn. It happened in front of everything. Now this is happening behind areas we've already worked on and been. So this is the closing of the door here. It's closing the door of whatever you've been spooked out about for the last year. Because I guarantee you in your life, the last year there is one little spot that has been bugging the crap out of you and has been freaking you out and you've been trying to, you know, and maybe the frustration's there to get rid of this energy or to become clear on what is causing the energy. And this could be one of those crazy, wild, random weekends where you go, holy shit, I think I figured this out, or holy cow, it went away. What happened?
Well, and I think also what we're going to see is like the slingshot effect, because of the fact that Mercury is retrograde during this entire process. When Mercury goes all the way to that point where it turns and goes stationary direct and then comes back across this significant seed that is being planted on the 3rd, it is going to effectively give you a double whammy. It is going to finally say, okay, here's the complete picture, go, run with it. So we're going to get a secondary effect from this, more so than you normally see when Mercury passes back over that shadow point and clears that area where it originally went retrograde and then advances. So it's going to be an interesting ride for a lot of people.
It is going to be an interesting ride with exactly what you said, this pointing to the 3rd, which if you're in America, this is happening when we're all asleep, which I think is interesting because it's happening pretty much, you know, early in the morning, Sunday. And, you know, we wake up with this, okay, go towards this direction. Like you said, this is highlighting a certain spot. It's highlighting a point that we must understand with the Mercury retrograde, where the work is, this breaking free of the old way and stepping into new comfort zones. This Jupiter energy is I think what is kind of leading the story to and kind of going to pass the Saturn story, because even though the eclipse happens and then we step into the beginning of this week and then the sun still has to hump over Saturn, I think once the sun humps over Saturn this week and as it starts to trine Jupiter, we pass this Saturn story that has been kind of eating us away for a year, and I think we start to move into the Jupiter story. I think there's a bigger mission to this Jupiter in Cancer story than we've all realized yet. And I think we've had to get to our deep inner worlds first, our own hidden worlds, our own frustrational worlds first, so we can finally step into the expanding of comfort zones, so we can finally step into the expanding of these emotions. So Yeah, this is a necessary evil that we have to go through first, which is frustrations, highlighting, getting over things, clearing the past, doing this deep inner work, this hidden work, this crazy, powerful, transformational work before we get the gifts, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I think that is very validating and something for people to focus on, rather than, oh my God, there's still work to be done, is to just realize that we are at the threshold. So it's not like you're still pushing that boulder up the mountain. The pithiest journey is over. The really difficult struggle should be uh, at that point where it's starting to finally crumble, and the new vision, the new door is starting to emerge. And of course, the way that we can really get a clear sense of how this is acting is by looking at the other planet that is moving around in Pisces, because Chiron is going to be in a very nice, tight trine to all of this activity too. So the potential for you being able to heal yourself and to share that healing, to pass that healing along to others, is expanded exponentially here. So it's not just about us getting our personal issues resolved, but it's about us contributing to the populace around us, our family, our friends, the people that have been on the journey with us, so that we all walk away from this particular epicenter, this particular phenomenon going on in the heavens, with a strong sense of having been healed.
A huge sense, yeah, of being healed and hidden healing, healing that not everybody can understand in your outer world, only you can understand in your inner world. That's what's so funny. It's like there are parts of ourselves that we are not exposing to the whole world. It's maybe hard to communicate it. It's maybe hard to understand it. These are deep stuff happening inside, but there's this healing that can come inside. And it's not like you're coming out being like, holy cow, I healed my arm. You know, it's much more intense, more deep. And it can become very specific to a certain spot, you know, that we've been working on for a long time. And it's so interesting as Monday comes around, so we come out of this huge eclipse, you know, it's really powerful. I think we've done a really good job of explaining it. But the work is not over. It's amazing what this week still brings after this huge eclipse. So we have a Sun-Saturn conjunction as Venus is on its last day of being in Sagittarius and moving into Capricorn. So this is a huge change. We're already going to see after Sunday and into Monday, wow, the energy is going to pick up. We're going to feel this Sun-Saturn. I think this is the culmination of the completion to this energy. It comes Monday, Tuesday with the Sun-Saturn conjunction. And then Venus moving into Capricorn is going to really change the game, because this is where Venus is going to retrograde. So Venus is going to be in Capricorn for months upon months. This is going to be an interesting transit, and it's going to be one that really adds to this Pluto and Capricorn story, which is our structure of our lives, the rules, our governments, and in our relationships. This is going to see how well the structures are working, how well the rules are working, how well a lot of the grounded energy is working, and so there's a grounded energy, I think, that comes this week, especially as we're going to finish the Sagittarius moon, and that's going to dip into Capricorn this week as it conjuncts Venus and Pluto. So there's and that's going to all be sextiling the Sun and Saturn and all this energy. So I think this is going to be a really powerful and positive week.
I think it definitely is going to play out that way. I think there are going to be those scary moments when it looks like, the dragon's at the door. But in reality, when you open the door, you're going to find that it's, a little kitty cat looking for a bowl of milk. So taming the dragon is going to be an interesting side effect of the adventure that this week holds for us. The other thing I'll mention about Venus and Neptune are always good friends. They're very much compatible planets, and they like to enhance each other. And so as we see Venus start to move into that tight sextile, as it does enter Capricorn, we're going to see a lot of that essence of grace coming through as a result of, you know, the entire eclipse phenomenon, all of the other things have been firing off. So at the end of the week, a week from today, from Friday, we are going to be able to see the rewards of this, in that there is going to be this sense of a dispensation of grace. You're going to be able to feel like there was a golden lining to the cloud. There was a good outcome to the movie. And that, I think, is going to make the whole adventure very personally rewarding and, you know, leave us with warm, fuzzy feelings.
Yeah, this is what's been all this karma that's been this buildup that's been happening for the last year, and then it's been broken up into different sections that I think we've covered in our show pretty well for those who've been following us. But it's all leading towards this week in a powerful way, and then it's this week where there's, I think, new karma that can come in many ways, especially as the Sun passes Saturn, and then Venus comes into Capricorn. And I think with relationships, too, I think we're going to see some really new relationships being formed here that are going to be part of this powerful retrograde karmic Pluto energy that comes in, transformational. I think there's going to be some relationships that come in and change our lives here. And I think this is like the beginning of this energy. This is also going to be crazy because at the end of this week, guess what happens? Jupiter goes retrograde. So, you know, it's like, if you want to add to the whole party even more, let's just add a Jupiter retrograde into the mix while the moon is in Capricorn conjuncting Pluto and Venus is in here, and it's all sextiling up to Neptune. It's sextiling over to Mercury retrograde, which Mercury, you know, goes to 3 degrees this week, and it's going to be part of this whole bunch. This is really wild stuff, and I think Jupiter, midway through the week when it goes retrograde, you always feel that. You know, the universe is kind of, you know, it's stopping the wine pouring. You know, it's like, okay, there's been not enough wine, you know. It's like, let's take a breather of this. It's been a lot of expansion. It's very rare to see Jupiter go from 6 degrees to 20 degrees in another sign. I mean, that is just, we're talking about 20 and 25, we're talking about 40, 44, 45 degrees of growth in 8 months.
Exactly. And the beauty of this is that while Jupiter was doing this initial passage through Cancer, it had become a storyteller. It was giving us possibilities to consider for how we can reestablish our life, how we can reinvent the conditions in our life. Because when Jupiter is moving through Cancer, it's all about your personal home, where you live inside yourself. And so as it goes backwards now, that's going to give you a little bit of time here to take all these various elements that you're now working with, that you're aware that you're working with, and put them into order, so that when it eventually gets back to that point where it goes direct once again, as Jupiter moves through Cancer the second time, the second passage has the potential for you to establish a whole new platform to operate from. You can create a new sense of base and foundation. You can create a new sense of home and surroundings. And you can create a new sense of how you're going to nurture yourself, and you're going to nurture those around you. So it is a very, very powerful catalyst that Jupiter is triggering right now as it does start to go retrograde in conjunction with all this other activity.
Yeah, it's the receding of some really powerful growth. It is us really starting to understand where we've grown. In many ways, the universe can't expand us anymore. I mean, it does though this week until Wednesday. You know, in a powerful way with this crazy eclipse, with all this energy. I mean, I'm going to just be real. I believe that the universe, and I believe God, has done a really amazing job at this point in everybody's life to growing and expanding and showing you new potential and showing you what's really underneath you inside, what you're really feeling, what you really can change, what you really have with strength, what you really have with your spirit, what you really have with what you can do with this reality. I mean, I'll go on for an hour if I have to, but the truth is when it comes to this point Wednesday on the 6th, the universe has done a really amazing job. And I think that when we reach this point, we should all pat ourselves on the back about what you've done, about what you've reviewed, about what new comfort levels you stepped into. And you prepared to understand these. You prepared to be grateful. I think part of Jupiter is the learning of being grateful for all the abundance. And I think Jupiter retrograde teaches your gratefulness and your abundance. And I think there's a gratefulness that needs to come after this crazy, powerful karmic changes that have happened in our lives. And you will feel this next week intensely.
Yeah, it definitely is moving us in that direction. The other thing I think that we can highlight here in this process is the realization of our own inner wisdom. You know, I see a lot of people who pick up a book by Wayne Dyer or whatever the latest flavor of the month is and imagine themselves having been enlightened by reading somebody else's ruminations about their relationship with the universe. And this is that passage of energies that brings up our own personal truth and really flashes it in our face. So if people are actually paying attention, you're going to be able to go through and start throwing out a lot of these old books because you're going to discover that your own fountain of inner wisdom is starting to flow freely. And you're going to be able to hear that voice. You're going to be able to trust those feelings, those instincts, those insights, and those understandings. So it's turning a lot of stuff around so that people who are really doing their work discover their own inner vision, their own inner voice, and they get away from self-sabotage, which we all are victims of simply because we read something that somebody else wrote, and maybe half of it applies to our life, but the other half is actually getting us off track. So a lot of empowerment is coming with this eclipse.
You did a great job on nailing that, because what matters now is not the knowledge anymore, but how funny that the universe invests so much energy into Capricorn here for the next 3-4 months here as Jupiter's retrograding. It's time to work and put the structure to the test. It's time to take this knowledge and make something of it. It's time to do some Capricorn, which is really make your goals happen, really reach for the top. You know, the comfy zone kind of has run its course. It's let's make some stuff happen. Let's really look at relationships and see if they're reaching our goals, if they're reaching our greatest potential. Capricorn is the potential of ourselves, and it's whether or not we sign up for certain amounts of potential. And I think you did a great job of explaining, so you know this knowledge. It's not about the knowledge of Wayne Dyer, it's what you do with the knowledge. And I think that this is forcing us to look at what we do. And I'm just going to be real. On that 6th, November 6th, the moon's in Capricorn, conjuncting Pluto, squaring Uranus. I'm sure it's got this Mars trine, so there's this will to act, but there can still be a little nervous tendency of the extreme energy that you're going to be forced to kind of work on. Jupiter has cut off the wine, or it has cut off the abundance. It's turned off the air conditioner. It's turned off the heater. That kind of energy. Like, you're having to work now without that comfort zone in the background that was always there. You're having to work now without that, emotional expanding that you were needing. There's this weird energy that turns off, and you have to adjust. And I think with so much power that comes this week, go inside, meditate, learn to meditate, especially because Neptune is basically stationary through this whole period, as well as it's getting ready for a direct motion in a couple weeks. Same thing with Chiron. Chiron's starting to stop. So this can feel like the Matrix is going to stop, out of nowhere, because all these planets go to this standstill, and we got Mercury retrograde still, and I think it's the Capricorn that will save the day, believe it or not. A lot of people have been, I think need to invest into Capricorn now, which is shut up and make it to the mountain. and go. You've got everything you need.
Exactly. Well, and the interesting thing about Capricorn is if you look at it most literally in the chart, it is straight up and down. It's the midhaven. What does that mean? That means that the sun is straight above you and there are no shadows. And this is a very powerful period in our lives when we get this kind of a highlight in that 10th house area where the shadows are eliminated. You're seeing the truth. Now trust it and go with it. So shall we take a look at some cards?
Yes, let's take a look at some cards.
Well, the first card up that gives us a sense of the direction we're going here, the good old Ten of Swords. And as you can see, that corpse is dead. The old identity, the old person, once again, has got 10 swords in its back. And there is a new dawn on the horizon. So as we move into Friday and Saturday, you may feel that kind of a autumnal energy that we're experiencing right now, because autumn is here. It is that period when the leaves are falling. You feel that dusty kind of feeling in the air, and you know that things are going to die in order to be reborn. So Friday, Saturday, I'm going to say that that card is very, very appropriate, because it's reflecting the death in preparation for the resurrection. And then on Sunday, look at this. This is beautiful. We have the Ten of Cups, and this is the rebirth. This is that energy of wish fulfillment, the attainment of our heart's desire, and it involves our family. It involves the people that we hold dear, the people who are on the journey with us. So that is the shift, the surge with that new moon. And as we start to advance in the week, we get the Ace of Cups. And again, this is up to you. You know, this is not like the universe is going to put you in a stranglehold and force you to express love and to express joy. But it is within you, and it is wanting to be released. And that really is the big picture for the beginning of next week, is to express the love, share the love, get out there and move around and dance in it. Next week gives us the opportunity to nurture ourselves once again and the people who are important to us. The Empress comes up, and the Empress is also a card of fertility. So as the new moon starts to advance, it is important for us to plant the seeds of the vision that we hold of our new life. And then, as the week continues to unfold, another 10. So we got 3 tens. We got the Ten of Swords, 10 of Cups, and now the 10 of Coins. And this is grounding all this energy out. This is what we were just talking about, good old Capricorn. So as the sun is flowing upward into the top of the heavens above us, we can really start the journey anew without any fears of self-undoing or self-deception. So big, powerful secondary effects from this occlusion of the sun by the moon and the solar eclipse coming up on the 3rd of November.
Wow, I'm glad my apartment's number 10.
There you go.
It's interesting that there's so much highlighting in a beautiful way about this this week, and a lot to do with these emotions, and so much with this water energy. And I think it's beautiful. We pulled the Ace of Cups. That's a powerful card. I mean, and we have never pulled that card, I don't think, in our 9-10 months of doing this. So, you know, it's interesting to see this total rebirth in a lot of ways of our emotions, of our feelings, and what a great way to Jupiter retrograde. You know, you and I have been looking at this week since, you know, we started this. For over almost a year, we've been waiting for this week. We knew this was the week that that the universe was pulling some crazy weird levers, and I know that you would honor this when I say, like, it's the truth. I mean, this is not a simple, easy, same old, go to work, go to home week. This is transformational. This is, you will feel the impact. This is, wow. I can't wait to, you and I could sit here and talk about what happens on the worldly stage, but that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is us all achieving our inner awareness, us all achieving our inner guidance, us all achieving our inner transformational growth. So this is that week where, you're like, wow, the universe had something planned for a long time. I think God's smiling upstairs, like, it's finally here.
Yes, and people are finally willing to open themselves up to it. One of the things is that the universe often approaches us with these beautiful options, and we freak out because the spotlight comes on. We discover that we're being singled out, at least in our own imagination. And the truth is, the universe is always trying to give us the most optimal existence possible. And this particular eclipse really is kind of dragging you into the light and forcing you to confront your own fears and to accept the grace that the universe wants you to experience.
Yes, it does, and I'm so glad that I've been able to do this with you, Chris, and to channel this. I've been waiting for this week for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is undoubtedly the beginning of the next stage of our interactions too. So it's going to be fun to see where our dialogue takes us next.
Yes, I can't wait to see Friday where we'll be at, what's changed in all of our lives, how we're feeling, what's happened on the world scale, just the whole change. And we're getting deeper into this Scorpio story, and it's once we pass through Saturn that you always start to see things, especially I think the holiday feeling's gonna come intense after this week. So it's not a coincidence, especially just because of the time period. It's like energetically too, that holiday vibe comes out really fast, us wanting to free ourselves of restriction, So really interesting stuff. And I think we brought up with Mars in a really good spot through this whole week. So there's a lot of forward movement. Mars comes off oppositions to Chiron. It comes off opposition to Neptune. It comes off any squares. And it really just flies through. The only thing is our emotions can get in the way of our actions with the big square this week of the moon and Mars. But other than that, it's go time.
It absolutely is. And those squares, whenever the moon or the sun are involved, it's fast moving, it's rapid. So, you don't wallow in it. You just acknowledge it and advance. And it's great having you back in your nest again.
I know. So, thank you. Oh.
So you're going to settle in for a while now, and we will be able to enjoy your daily contributions to everybody's best interests.
Yep. I'm happy to be back, and never thought I'd enjoy the smell of Bumpus so much. So I'm happy to be back.
Great. Well, it was good chatting with you, David, and you have a fabulous week.
You too, Chris. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.